Hello, and welcome back to the studio. I'm Dr. Wiggo, and today we're going to talk about Apple's price hikes. Ouch! First, I'm going to talk about what. What were the price hikes? How much were they? On what products? All that kind of stuff. Then the chapter after that, I'll talk about why. You probably know why, but I'll just go through it one more time. And then the chapter after that, I'll talk about why now? Why not later? And then the last chapter, I'll talk about, well, what comes next, both for Apple's prices and for this channel and for the next video and all that kind of stuff. So what were these price hikes that Apple announced? Well, it all started a week ago, Wednesday, June 17th. Tim Cook did an interview with the Wall Street Journal in which he said, unfortunately, price increases are unavoidable. We're doing our best to mitigate the huge increases that are being passed to us, and we've been trying to shield our customers from the increases, but the situation has become unsustainable. So he clearly signaled that prices were going to be higher. What no one expected, that was a week later, on Thursday, June 25th, Apple raised prices across the board on Macs and iPads, and a few other products, but not iPhones or watches. So for example, the iMac went up $200, which is 15% increase. The MacBook Neo, the cheap one, is no longer the cheap one because it went to $699, up $100, so 17%. The Mac Mini, which has not been available to buy for some time, is now back for sale, but now it's 33% more at $799 instead of $599, although you get a slightly better configuration. The MacBook Airs went up $200, which is 18% on the 13-inch model and 15% on the 15-inch model. The MacBook Pros went up $300, which is 18% on the 14-inch model and 11% on the 16-inch model. So sometimes it pays to get the bigger one because the price hike isn't quite as severe. The Mac Studio M4 model went up $500, which is 25%, which is pretty hefty, but not as hefty as the Mac Studio M3 Ultra 96 gigabytes, which went from $39.99 to $52.99. That's $1,300 or 33%. Ouch indeed. And the iPads got price increases across the board as well. The iPad Mini is up $100 or 20%. The iPad Pro 11-inch is up $200 or 20%. The iPad Air 11-inch is up $150 or 25%. The base iPad, the $349 one, is now $449, which is a $100 increase or 29%. Oh, but it gets worse. The Apple TV 4K, which was $129, is now up $70 to $199 or 54% higher, and it's a 4-year-old model. The HomePod is up to $349, which is a 17% increase, and this is a version that will not support Apple Intelligence. No Siri AI on this guy, or on the HomePod Mini, which goes up from $99 to $129, which is 30%. And again, no Apple Intelligence, no Smart Siri. It's not all bad news yet, because unaffected for now are iPhones, watches, AirPods, but we have new models of those expected shortly, and those are going to probably be more expensive. Some people got really lucky because this announcement came in the middle of Prime Day, which is actually several days. So Amazon has big sales on Apple products. And on Thursday, the prices went up, but they did not go up on Amazon because the Prime sales were still based off the old prices. So on Friday, people could still get the Prime Day prices, which were based off of the old list prices, not the new list prices. Unfortunately, that ended Friday. But I've got links below to all of the products that were on sale on Prime Day, so you can see what Amazon's current prices are. You kind of had to have been lucky and already have been shopping the Prime Day sales and got it by Friday. But the big question is why? Why did Apple raise all these prices? And of course, the answer is Ramageddon. This insatiable demand from the build-out of AI data centers for RAM, SSDs, hard drives, graphics cards, you name it, which was my 5th worst problem with AI that I mentioned in this video about AI a few weeks ago. The prices of some DRAM has gone up over 4 times, and Wednesday, the day before Apple's price increases, Micron reported their quarterly revenue, which was 4 times higher than the same quarter last year. Their margins were 5 times higher. Their profits were unimaginable. It's actually worse than that, because Micron has basically stopped making consumer-level DRAM and is focusing only on AI, which needs a specialized kind of DRAM, and they've transferred all of their efforts into those kind of RAM. So you can't get regular DRAM from Micron anymore. They've shut down their consumer division. And it's not just Micron. It's all of the DRAM manufacturers. They have all jacked their prices way up. Again, supply and demand, but the supply is being cut because, again, of the specialized RAM for the AI. So the supply gets cut, and the demand is still the same, and so you have these price increases. Apple tried. PC prices have been going up for months now because of RAM and SSD prices, but Apple was kind of holding the line, partly because they had long-term contracts, so they weren't really being hit by the increased prices just yet. But they are now, as Tim Cook said. It's happening now, and they got to do it. Which brings us to the question, why now? Well, that's partly why now. It was partly because they were able to hold the line because of their high margins and their long-term contracts that they bought way in advance. But now those contracts are running out, and they're not being able to renew them at anywhere near the same kind of prices. But there's other reasons. For one thing, we have new iPhones coming in September, the new iPhone 18 Pro and Pro Max, and they didn't increase the prices on the iPhones because we're probably going to eat it in September. And I have been reading all the tech news, and people are predicting that the iPhone 18 Pro will be between $50 and $200 more than the equivalent iPhone 17 Pro. We'll see in September. But the other reason why now is this is basically Tim Cook taking the hit for John Ternus, the new CEO. Tim Cook did the interview with the Wall Street Journal. Tim Cook said prices were going to go up. The prices went up on Tim Cook's watch. So when Ternus takes over in September, he can really only be yelled at for the price increase of the iPhone 18 Pro, because this all happened under Tim Cook. Maybe they could have waited until September and done all this, but this way, again, it makes John Ternus not have the blood on his hands. Everyone's going to blame Tim Cook, and it's not Tim Cook's fault. Tim Cook is a supply chain genius. In fact, the reason Apple hasn't had to raise prices until now is because Tim Cook is such a supply chain genius that he had locked in long-term contracts on RAM and SSDs and all these things so that these price increases hadn't really hit Apple that hard until now. So now the question is, well, what next? RAM prices are not going to go back down, and SSD prices are not going to go back down until this AI demand is satisfied. And at the rate they're building out, it's going to take a huge collapse of the AI companies to stopping this build out. They're going to continue to buy up all the RAM and all the processors and all the SSDs and all the hard drives to build these gigantic data centers to do God knows what, because we still don't know what the hell AI is up to. Watch my video about AI up here. Also, what's next is the prices of Apple's new products. They have a huge product pipeline that they've built up. Going forward, the rest of 2026 and 2027, Apple has quite the product pipeline. In fact, unless something jarring happens, that will be my video next week, as I'm going to lay out Apple's product roadmap for the next year, year and a half. And all of those prices are going to be higher than we were expecting for the same reasons. And for all we know, the shortages could get worse, the prices could go higher. We don't know what's going to happen. But come back next week and I'll talk about Apple's plans, and then we can watch together as they go through this product pipeline and release all these new products and see what the prices actually are. But I know they're going to be higher. The only question is, how much higher? We don't know. So that's what I have to say about Apple's price hikes. They're not pretty. They're across the board on the Macs and the iPads and even some of the other products. The Apple TV 4K up over 50%. Ouch. And raising prices on the HomePod and the HomePod Mini, which won't even support Apple Intelligence and Siri AI. What the heck? So I don't really have any good news, except come back next week and I'll tell you about the product roadmap and how much more expensive those things are going to be. So that's it for today. Thanks for stopping by. See you next time. Bye-bye, and we'll talk about product roadmap for Apple going forward through 2027. Thanks for staying to the end. Bye-bye.